Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to episode 17 of the Integrity Online Dynasty. And in today's episode, we have our entire offseason to go through. Obviously, last year went a lot like how we wanted it to, went 13-1, winning both the Big Ten Championship and the Rose Bowl. But now, we get to put all of that behind us and look at everything we have to do and get to do during the offseason, starting with the coaching changes. So we'll take a look here, move into the Big Ten, and scroll down to Penn State. So obviously, first up, Mike Yurcich, our offensive coordinator, moves to Maryland to become the head coach of Maryland. So that's a loss for us, but we'll be okay. Moving through to Penn State, we have a new offensive and defensive coordinator. An offensive coordinator this year will have Phil Longo, and then a defensive coordinator will have Jim Leonard. So it's going to be alright. We lost both Mike Yurcich and Brent Pry, and obviously James Franklin signed a new contract after a great year, winning both the Rose Bowl and the Big Ten Championship. A bright future still ahead for him on his contract. So even though we lost both our offensive and defensive coordinator, I think we'll be alright. Now we're going to take a look at the players that are moving on from Penn State. So obviously, having such a great year last year and so many talented players, we've got a few that are going to be declaring for the draft, but we'll see if we can get any of them to stay. Also, Rodney McGraw, it looks like he's going to be transferring to Toledo. Don't know why he picked there when he could stay at Penn State, but I suppose that's alright. I did, however, convince Noah Kane to stay with us just by telling him that we can get him to a first-round draft pick, which is definitely something that I think we can make happen. Another guy to look at, Jaquan Brisker. He was a redshirt senior who graduated and is going to be declaring for the pro draft. He's projected to go for the first round, which would absolutely be great for us and him. And then a look at some other Penn State seniors that are graduating and not declaring for the draft. Got Eric Wilson, Anthony Wiggin, Mike Miranda, Jake Pinniger, who has been in Penn State for a long time. Same with Jonathan Sutherland, Tariq Castro-Fields, Ellis Brooks, Arnold Ebiketie, Fred Hansard, John Lovett, Derek Tangelo, Des Holmes, Cam Sullivan-Brown, and Sean Clifford, our quarterback, deciding to just graduate and go out into life, not declaring for the draft. A little bit disappointing, but still, gotta thank Sean Clifford for all the great years he put in at Penn State. But now, let's take a look at all of the players declaring for the draft who aren't graduating and see if we can convince a couple to stay. So Joey Porter, I feel like we can definitely get him to stay. I think probably start off by just telling everybody that they won't regret getting their college degree. But Joey Porter says that's not enough. I'm gonna have to think hard about him, because as much as I want to guarantee a national title and a conference championship, there's still a lot to look at. But let's go ahead and take a look at Brandon Smith right now. His persuasion chance is also very high. We got him to stay. That's great news, just with telling him that he won't regret his degree. PJ Mustipher, do the same thing. He's going to come back next year. Great. Same with Daniel George. Projected 7th round, so I feel like we can get him to stay, and we can. That's great news. Rodney McGraw, I don't really think we're going to be able to convince him not to transfer. But Joey Porter Jr. is going to be someone who I think about, but I think I might try and tell him that we'll win a Big Ten championship and guarantee him that. That's something I'll have to think about, but that's just the feeling that I get right now. And that might be what I end up doing with him. After looking at that, glad we got to highlight all of our seniors graduating and convince a couple people to stay, and I'll just need to decide on Joey Porter Jr. But right now, I think we're ready to advance to the next part of the offseason. Alright, so here we go. Here is the list of all of the prospects that we still have available. Some we'll throw some points into, and then obviously all of our commitments are down here as well. But we will start off by putting a couple points into this guard. Wesley Ford, we already have a bit of a lead on him, but probably about 500 or so just to make sure we keep it over Minnesota. Same with Teddy Shelton, we're leading Pitt on him, but it would just be nice to get a running back, so put about 200 in him. David Hall's another guy, he's a JUCO athlete who'd be nice to get, have a big lead over Syracuse, but throw a couple hundred points into him. Same with Jay Jamison, because I'd just like to get a tackle. I think that'd be nice to keep our lead over Virginia Tech. Tim Campbell, not super worried about him, but we'll throw 350 is good. Same with Chris Harrison, throw a couple hundred into him. We'll do like 500 for him just to keep our lead over Colorado. Quinn Mobley, we're trailing Temple, and I don't really think he's gonna be worth putting points into. Tony Coe, we'll throw a couple on just to make sure we try and stay ahead of Maryland. We'll actually do a good bit for him because they're only trailing by 120. So we'll do 750. We're trailing on Xavier Greer to Hawaii, but Brian Price, another school that Maryland's trying to chase us on, so we'll probably do 1,000 points on him. And then our top three are Jordan DeLuca, Brad DeLuca, and Kenny Capps. We'll put the rest into these guys. So Jordan DeLuca, 5-star athlete, have a nice lead on Cal, but would still really like to get this guy, so we'll start off with like 3,000. Moving up to Brad, we're trailing Florida State, but I still think we can get him, and it'd be a nice addition. So we'll throw a couple thousand into him as well. Old Dominion, UNC, and Miami all tailed off, so it's really just us or Florida State that he's going to. But before I do Kenny Capps, let's make sure that I don't really want to put anything else into anyone that's still down here. A couple of these guys I feel like I'm not going to get on the lower end, but I think I'm good. Put the rest into Kenny Capps, see where that gets us and how we look. It's probably going to either be us or Washington for Kenny Capps. So obviously we'd love to get this guy. Throw a couple more into Brad DeLuca as well. And there we have it. Our 13,000 points into all of these players. I feel pretty confident and that we should get a couple more, but finally we are done with recruiting, and hopefully we'll have the #1 recruiting class by the end of this. So here we go, signing day is loading up here. Get into it, and that's it. Jordan DeLuca, and we lost out on Kenny Capps and Brad DeLuca. Only 3 commitments are Jay Jamison, and then Jordan DeLuca and David Hall. Kenny Capps goes to Washington, Brad DeLuca goes to Florida State. And I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised at that. I thought we were going to get a lot more people than we did, especially down near the bottom and the top. I guess let's go ahead and take a look and see how much we missed them by. So it looks like Tony Coe and Teddy Shelton aren't committing anywhere, but Kenny Capps goes to Washington, Brad DeLuca to Florida State. We lost out on a lot of these guys. 30 points, 1,000 down there, another 1,000, close to 2,000. There's Jordan DeLuca, who we won by a lot. Xavier Greer, weren't going to get him. Jay Jamison, we didn't need to put any more points into. But wow, I'm pretty disappointed, honestly. I thought we were going to get at least a couple more of these guys. Just disappointed. Take a look and see if we're not going to be the #1 class. I highly doubt it. We do stay at #2, but Georgia stays at #1. I'm still extremely happy with our recruiting class, but just feel like we missed out on a couple good prospects that I thought we were going to get. But we'll stick with who we have, and clearly it's time to advance. So after taking a quick look through, I'm pretty sure that the only people we have to change position for is going to be our athletes. So starting off with David Hall, seems like his best position is wide receiver. That's where he stays 76 overall at. So I think we're going to leave him at wide receiver. Brandon Gray, a bit more complicated, so we'll get to him in a second. And then Jordan DeLuca, the 5-star athlete. His best position seems to be halfback. That's where he stays 75 overall, and nowhere else really jumps out to me. Andrew Brenner, another guy who's a little bit more complicated because we don't need another halfback, and he seems like a bit more of a defensive side of the ball guy. So left end and right end, he goes to 70 overall, but that doesn't really seem like a place we need. So I'm thinking strong safety, because that's just a spot where we might need him in the future. So I think strong safety is where we'll put him. And then Brandon Gray, quarterback, he's actually 82 overall compared to his 80 overall projected. But throwing the ball, he has some pretty good stats, so I think I'm gonna put him at quarterback. Alright, so now I get to show you the training results from spring football. Jahan Dotson is our best player at 98 overall, but just look at that. We have an entire first screen of 90 overall players, and then a lot of high 80s. So clearly a ton of people put in some good work and really raised their overalls during spring ball. And this is exciting to look at. I mean, we have a really good team moving into a couple 70s who might have some work to do for us during this season, but really happy with this so far. Also wanted to show you the teams of other user players, like Deke and Pitt doesn't have a full screen of 90s, Purdue led by David Bell, Wake Forest led by Donovan Green, West Virginia with Doug Nestor, Clemson still absolutely stacked, Northwestern led by Brandon Joseph, Oklahoma another screen of full 90s with 2 99s, but I'm most excited about and most confident in our team. Now, unfortunately, there is only a max roster size of 70, so we're gonna have to cut 6 players, and starting with a couple at the bottom down here, this walk-on Mike Wiggins, Jay Jameson might have to go, a couple other of the freshmen. This guy's a bust, unfortunately, but we'll just have to look through and see what guys we're gonna have to decide to cut. Starting off, we're gonna be cutting Jay Jameson. Even though he just committed to us, I don't really see him playing a role in our team anytime soon. Same with David McMahon, just don't think we'd ever get to have him play. Another guy, Jake Brown, who's a bust wide receiver that unfortunately just isn't gonna make the team with us. Next guy is going to be Marcus Scott. He really just doesn't fit a need at quarterback, so he's going to be the guy to drop us to 72. The next guy is going to be Michael Pierre, because we just don't need another outside linebacker right now. And then finally, I think the last guy to go is going to be Tim Hines. Even though he's a tight end, he's a huge bust, and he's just going to be the guy to get us down to our final roster size of 70 players. So now, the last 2 things that we have to do for the offseason are to set up our recruiting board and decide what players to redshirt. Alright, so we've got our recruiting board set up now with 35 guys, and we'll be able to scout 20 of them with 50 points each. So we'll start off here, Michael Williams, an athlete, and he will remain at 78. 94 speed isn't bad. 5-star wide receiver, Glenn Holt, goes up to 79. Al Stokes, another good athlete, goes up to 79 as well. Not too bad for him. Moving down to another 5-star. This is a D-end, Walter Peterson, down to 75 minus. I feel like we could probably remove him. But this next guy I'm really excited about. 85 tight end, Steve Pollard, is -6. Goes to 79. We'll keep him, but that's really disappointing. Frank Barnett goes up 2 to 80. Could be a good cornerback for us, especially with good speed. Definitely want to get a center this year. Tim McDonald seems alright. Stays at a 79. We'll keep him on the board for now. Another guy that we'll scout here is another tight end, Jamal Gunn. He goes up 1, 78, not bad. Another center here, Jordan Jackson. He goes down to 77. Tight end at 77. Stays there, but doesn't look too bad. A middle linebacker here. We definitely need a good one. Goes up to 78, so he's definitely going to be worth looking at. Charles Brown, a good tackle there. Another cornerback goes up in rating. That would be nice. Definitely keep an eye on him. And then just scroll through here. I don't think I'm going to want to do any special teams players to scout. I think I'll just trust that we'll get a good one of those. Scott Bryant, another middle linebacker that we'll definitely scout, and he remains at 78. JT Fowler, another center who will scout, stays at 76. Stay on the O-line with Brandon Brown, who goes up to 78. Doesn't look too bad at all there. Go back to the defense with Willie Jude, who goes up 3, and Mike Bass will go up 2. Those look like two good defensive guys for us to look at. Take a look at Daniel Pratt here, 80 overall free safety, and he goes up to 81 with 97 speed. That looks pretty good there. Found one more guy to look at, John Harris, a fullback who goes up to 78 overall there. Love to see it. So the last thing to do is show you a quick run through of the guys we're going to redshirt. Includes Brandon Gray and Jones at quarterback, Jordan DeLuca at halfback. Move into wide receiver. Both McLean and David Hall are going to get redshirted. We have Keandre Lambert-Smith there as well. And actually, we're not going to be redshirting Keandre Lambert-Smith, because I think he can play a big role on the team this year. But we're going to be redshirting Khalil Dinkins and starting true freshman Walter Carlson. Then at O-line, we're going to be redshirting Landon Tengwall at left tackle, and then Terry Morris at left guard. But those are the only two O-linemen that we're going to be redshirting, because we're going to be starting Caden Wallace. Have a couple D-ends to redshirt, as well as a couple new defensive tackles. And then at linebacker, we're actually a little bit thin, so we're only going to be redshirting Jeff Yates, but we should hopefully be getting a couple good recruits in our recruiting class this year to help bolster that group. Didn't have any DBs to redshirt. Tig Brown, we're going to have play this year. A couple strong safeties, and then that is everybody who we're going to be redshirting. Well, I started off this episode not wanting to call this an off-season spectacular, because I've seen that name before and I haven't really loved it, but after everything that we've gone through in this episode, I think it's well warranted that we can call this the off-season spectacular episode. So I'll probably do one recap episode of everything that we did during the off-season, as well as to get us ready for the start of the season. But once that hits, it's going to be all the games, all the way through, and that's what I'm most excited for, and I know what you're ready for. So, I will see all you guys then, and I hope you all enjoyed this episode. We are ready for football.